a lot is going on, right? There's a lot happening, both between sort of these existing organizations supporting the movement. It is pretty dramatic. I mean, that's what they're going for, and that tends to be sort of the Occupy way, right? They take down the website of some major conglomerate, and they put up a black screen with some sort of threatening phrase going on. And one of the things they do also tend to do is disguise their voices, right? It's this idea that you're really anonymous, that nobody could sort of trace you. In fact, there's a really interesting telling of the story of Anonymous, if anybody's interested in sort of hacktivism. I think it's called We Are Anonymous. And a lot of what they talk about is sort of the way that they disguise their digital presence, right? Their things like IP address, any sort of traceable internet presence. And so a lot is going on at the time. And another really important thing that the Occupy movement does, and we're still talking prior to any sort of real formal protest, is sets up a lot of digital infrastructure, right? Here we're looking at a page that's intended for live streaming. This is Occupy Stream, for live streaming all of the protests, right? And so the idea was that you could expose people to this. You don't have to be in New York. You can be watching this on your computer at home. You can be thinking about what's going on. You can see the issues, the signs, right? People being arrested. You can see all of that stuff from home, and you can be sort of involved in that way. All right, so some other things are coming out at this time also, right? Some of these sort of ads trying to get people involved and get people to think about what's going on. So here's the flyer, like, yes, we can. All right, so at this point, people don't really know that much about what the movement's going to look like. But the idea is that they're going to sort of drum up enthusiasm. And this slogan, yes, we can, sort of becomes a part of the movement rhetoric early on, right? Yes, we can, yes, we can. It is a play on yes, we can. And so, you know, that you'll find little sayings throughout some of the movement paraphernalia that's like, can we make a change? Yes, we can, or something like that. And so, you know, this is not nearly as popular as We Are the 99%, which I think people, you know, unanimously would say is related to the movement, but it is sort of internally very important, kind of like this rallying cry. And so this sort of like call to a historical setting. I'm just gonna sort of like let what's happening in the chat happen for now, and then we can come back and talk to it. It seems like people are talking amongst themselves, which is great. Okay, so this, you know, sort of thinking about where this movement fits in historically and kind of giving it an importance. And this is a lot of what we even saw sort of during the course of the movement, is trying to attach ourselves to important events. And so if you scan this QR code, which was more popular in 2011 than it is now, you got directed to the Occupy Wall Street site. And what's happening on the site at this time is that there's, you know, information on the protest, that there's information on groups across the country. You can join your group's page or discussion. You can create a group, right? Because one of the things the movement does is make it all right for just one person to create a group. Another infrastructure that's being created is the 99% project. You know, one thing that we want to do to build up to September 17th is this 99% project. It's promotional. We want to bring people in. We want to prioritize that the upper 1% is having this negative impact on us. And we really want to bring the human element into this aspect of the movement. So here's how we're hoping to do it. 1, people will take a picture of themselves with a sign. The sign will describe a problem that the person is going through, such as, I am a student with $25,000 in debt. I am a homeowner who just got foreclosed upon. I am someone with thousands in medical bills and no insurance. After, below that, a single line, I am the 99%. And below that, Occupy Wall Street, September 17th. So someone just made the comment, I only heard about this from word of mouth, right? So there's some really interesting things going on as part of this movement, and I think one of them is that, you know, these things are sort of all happening in a relatively organized and structured way, kind of behind the scenes. There's a massive creation of infrastructure that's happening online. And we'll get in a couple slides to sort of some of the events that happened before the event. But this kind of gets translated into, well, I saw, those silly posts on Facebook or whatever. But really there's a creation factor that's happening here too. So here's what they get in the early days of this 99% project. If you were watching the Occupy movement, this gets really popular over the course of the movement. But this is sort of the pre-movement, let's be involved sort of push. Again, just sort of drive home the college students thing. Here is a very explicit call to include students, high school and college. I mean, there was no specific reach for college students, but definitely students in general. And so there's this really strong idea that students are really influential protesters, right? That they're really important, both ideologically and because of sort of their biographical availability, as Doug McAdam would call it, which means, they don't have to work. They typically don't have kids. They typically, for the most part, sort of have the freedom to adjust their schedule. And so, these are available people who can come in the middle of the day and sleep in a park and do all that sort of stuff. And so there's some real targeting here going on. And then, again, just thinking about leading up to the occupation, there's a bunch of meetings and trainings set up. You can look through this list if you're interested. And, there's these sort of ideas that there's going to be this preparation for what's happening. There's these critical mass bike rides, which are sort of smaller scale protests. And then there's things like calendars created where you can find your nearest, training or your nearest event or your nearest meeting or anything along those lines. Also, we see this General Assembly being set up really early, right? It's happening prior to the movement. It's sort of the format laid out before anybody's in person sort of meeting and getting together. At the protest site, they're getting together at these general assemblies to sort of think about, well, how is this protest going to happen? What is it going to look like? And so in, September, much of the world is taken by surprise. They don't know this is coming, and all of a sudden, here's 1,000 people in New York City protesting. And so, sure, it's surprising for some. For others, they got an explicit message. Hey, President Obama, and this is sort of as blatant as you can be. This is the 15th of September, right, 2 days before these protests are supposed to start. Hey, in case you wanted to know, Obama, we're going to have a General Assembly. Check it out. Anyone who can't come to New York can be part of other solidarity occupations across the country. And early on, the movement would say, get ready for our one demand, which I think invited some of the criticism they got about sort of what they want and things like that. But was early on one of the ways that they tried to get people involved